Money was the language my family spoke best. The Caldwell fortune began with my grandfather in the 1960s, commercial real estate deals that turned a modest $50,000 into $8 million over 20 years. My father inherited that foundation and expanded it, taking bold risks in the stock market during the 1980s and 90s. By the time I was born, the family net worth hovered around $180 million. Growing up, every dinner table conversation revolved around investments, portfolio strategies, market trends, IPOs, dividend yields. My older brother, Marcus, 7 years older than me, absorbed it all effortlessly. By 16, he was managing a $500,000 trust fund my father had set up as a learning exercise. My sister, Vanessa, for years my senior, received her own $500,000 trust at 16 and had turned it into $1.2 million by 23 through smart blue chip picks and municipal bonds. When I turned 16, I asked about my trust fund. Dad peered over his glasses. Let's see how you handle your savings account first. Investing isn't for everyone. Marcus and Vanessa had shown aptitude, he explained, but I was creative, basic. Not everyone had a mind for numbers. I was given a $10,000 savings account instead. The message was clear. I wasn't money smart. It wasn't just Dad. Mom reinforced it constantly. Lily's the creative one, she would say. Marcus has the business brain. Vanessa has the analytical mind. And Lily, well, she has the artistic soul. Every family needed balance, she said. Translation, someone had to be less than the rest. I wasn't bad at school. I earned straight A's, even in mathematics. When I brought home a perfect score in AP calculus, Dad barely looked up. That's nice, honey. Marcus just made $47,000 on a tech stock play. Want to hear about his strategy? By college, I stopped trying. I studied economics at Yale, funded by a trust my parents controlled with small monthly allowances. Meanwhile, Marcus gained full access to his trust at 21, Vanessa at 22. I waited until I was 24 before asking about mine. We've decided to keep yours in trust a bit longer, Dad said. You haven't shown the maturity for that responsibility. Your spending habits are concerning. My spending? Rent, groceries, and student loans. But I nodded and continued living on my $2,800 monthly allowance, while Marcus bought a $3.2 million Manhattan condo. After Yale, I joined JP Morgan as a junior analyst in investment management. Entry-level work, nothing flashy, but I excelled. I spotted patterns others missed, identified undervalued assets, predicted sector rotations. Yet family interest in my work was minimal. How's the bank job? Dad would ask occasionally. Good. Just analyst stuff for now. What they didn't know, by 28 I was VP at JP Morgan, managing $4.7 billion in assets with a personal salary of $1.8 million plus multi-million performance bonuses. What I also didn't share, I had been quietly building my own portfolio since 22 with $75,000 inherited from my grandmother, bypassing the family trust. Through aggressive but calculated bets in emerging tech, biotech, and options, I turned it into $8 million. By 32, my personal assets totaled $94 million. Yet I lived modestly. A small Brooklyn apartment, a 7-year-old Toyota, clothes from J. Crew. My family assumed I was barely scraping by. Must be tough in New York on your income, Vanessa had said once, voice dripping with sympathy. Let us know if you need help with rent. I smiled, changed the topic, and carried on. 3 years ago, everything changed. My father, Marcus, and Vanessa faced a financial crisis. Their aggressive, leveraged investment strategies had thrived in bull markets, but collapsed when the market fell 18% over 6 weeks in early 2021. Margin calls wiped out $67 million, nearly 40% of the family wealth. Dad called an emergency meeting at the old dining room in Greenwich, Connecticut. I returned home. We're restructuring everything, he announced, face gray with stress. Consolidating assets, creating a unified family investment strategy, bringing in professional management. What about individual portfolios? I asked. We're merging everything into one family fund, Marcus said. $110 million total. We need a private wealth advisor with proven expertise. What are the requirements? I pressed. Minimum 10 years experience, Vanessa listed, verified performance history, managing $500 million or more, expertise in both growth and preservation strategies. Dad is working with a headhunter. I leaned back, quiet. The family that had dismissed me as not money-minded was now scrambling for the very skill set I had quietly honed for years. I nodded slowly, saying nothing. For the next 3 weeks, I watched as they interviewed potential advisors. 5 men came to the house, ages 45 to 60, all impeccably dressed, all boasting impressive resumes. In the end, they chose Bradford Whitmore, 61, with 35 years of experience, managing partner at Whitmore Wealth Management. Conservative, traditional, exactly the type they believed they needed. The problem? Bradford's track record was underwhelming. His 20-year average return barely exceeded 6.8% annually, just a fraction above the S&P 500. His strength lay in preserving wealth, not rebuilding it. His clients were old money families content with slow, safe growth. He was the worst choice for recovering the millions they'd lost. I stayed silent. They transferred $110 million into his care and spent 6 months watching him scrape together a 4.2% return, while the market surged 14%. By Thanksgiving, Dad's frustration was palpable. Bradford's too cautious, Marcus complained. We're not recovering what we lost. We need someone aggressive. Vanessa countered, and the aggressive advisors want outrageous fees. 2% management plus 20% performance. It's highway robbery. Maybe we should manage it ourselves again, but what if the market crashes? I stayed quiet. Lily, you work at a bank, Mom said suddenly. Do you know any capable advisors? I weighed my words carefully. I do know someone. Very solid track record, aggressive but calculated, fair fees, but very selective with clients. How selective? Dad asked. Minimum investment $50 million. They only take clients they genuinely believe they can help. Can you introduce us? Dad pressed. I can ask. No promises, I replied. Track record? Marcus asked, skeptical. Average annual returns of 22% over 8 years. Verified externally. The room went silent. Impossible, Marcus muttered. I've seen the documentation, I said calmly. What's the firm? Vanessa asked. LMC Capital Management, I said. None of them recognized it. They shouldn't. I'd founded it 5 years ago as my personal investment vehicle, named with my initials. Legal structures insulated my identity. Can we meet them? Dad asked. I'll reach out. They're very private, I said. I spent the weekend preparing. My attorney drafted agreements, my accountant verified performance, every detail legitimate, auditable, precise. I set up a dedicated contact, email, phone, and scheduling system routed through my corporate structure. 3 days later, Dad called. They want to meet next week. Can you come? I'll try, I said. Tuesday afternoon, I arrived 15 minutes early at their Greenwich home. My St. Laurent suit and Betgier Veneta briefcase presented a side of me they'd never seen. Poised, successful, confident. Dad opened the door, squinting. Lily, is everyone here? You look different. I followed him into the study. Mom, Marcus, Vanessa, all staring as if I'd transformed overnight. LMC Capital should be here any minute, Dad said. I smiled faintly. They're already here. What? I slid a folder across the desk. LMC Capital Management. Lily Marie Caldwell, founder and chief investment officer. The silence was suffocating. Marcus picked up the folder, trembling. This is a joke, he said. No joke. I run LMC. 8 years managing $680 million for 17 clients, plus my personal portfolio of $94 million. That's your worth too, I said. Vanessa's voice barely whispered. You $94 million? Approximately, I confirmed. Dad's face drained of color. How? I'm good at investing, I said simply. And I work at JP Morgan as a managing director in their emerging markets division. LMC Capital is independent. Last year, JP Morgan paid me $6.8 million. LMC generated another $18 million in management fees and performance bonuses. $25 million. Their jaws dropped. And you live in Brooklyn? Dad asked incredulously. It's efficient. I don't need wasted space. Why didn't you tell us? You never asked. You spent decades assuming I wasn't capable with money. I saw no reason to correct your assumptions. Mom's voice trembled. We thought you were struggling. You assumed artistic meant incapable. You assumed quiet meant incompetent. I let you believe what you wanted, I said. So this revenge? Dad asked cautiously. No, this is business. You need investment management. I provide it. I am the best person for this job, regardless of our relationship. We can't hire you, Marcus said. It's awkward. Then hire someone else. But Bradford's 4% in a 14% market? At that rate, it'll take 17 years to recover your losses. I can do it in 4. How? Vanessa demanded. I opened my briefcase again. 80 slides, analysis, strategies, risk management, sector allocations, projections, everything. I walked them through it for 90 minutes, showing not just that I knew what I was doing, but that I was exactly the solution they needed. I laid out client testimonials, verified performance reports, and independent audits. By the time I finished, the room was silent. Your returns, they're real, Dad finally said. Completely verifiable. I can connect you with my clients, my auditors, third-party verification services, I replied. Everything is documented, everything transparent. Mom's voice trembled. Why didn't you tell us? Because I wanted you to value me for who I am, not what I have, I said evenly. I wanted you to respect my intelligence, my skills, my contributions. But for 30 years, you dismissed me as the family's artistic failure. We never said that, Vanessa protested. You didn't have to, I said. Every time you told someone I was the creative one, the subtext was clear. Every comparison to Marcus implied exactly what I knew all along. Nice career versus impressive career. Everyone understood the message. I understood it too. Marcus swallowed. So what now? That's up to you, I said. You need investment management. I'm offering my services. Standard industry fees. 1% management, 15% performance. I'm giving you a family discount. Most clients pay more. Mom looked shocked. You charge us? I charge everyone. This is my profession. I'm very good at it. I don't work for free. Dad asked, and if we say no, then say no. I have 17 other clients and a waiting list of 47. You asked for the best. This is the best. But if your ego can't handle your youngest daughter outperforming you, that's your choice. I began packing my briefcase. Wait, Dad said quickly. Just wait. We need to discuss this. I left them, letting the voices rise behind the closed door. Marcus argued it was humiliating. Vanessa called it weird. Mom fretted over family dynamics. Dad defended the numbers. He knew they couldn't be disputed. 20 minutes later, he emerged. We want to move forward. But we need assurances. How do we separate business from family? How do we make sure this doesn't destroy our relationships? Simple, I said. During business hours, I'm your investment manager. Outside of that, I'm your daughter. Professional respect while managing your wealth. Family affection otherwise. Roles don't mix. Marcus frowned. And if we disagree with your decisions, you gave that authority to Bradford before. Same terms here. You set the goals, I execute. You'll get quarterly reports and can ask questions, but day-to-day moves are mine. That's a lot of control, Marcus muttered. That's how professional management works. If you want control, do it yourself. If you want results, trust the professional. Dad nodded slowly. Can you rebuild what we lost? Yes, for years, maybe 5. You're back at $180 million. 6 years, $250 million. That's conservative, assuming 18% annual returns, which is below my historical performance. My downside protection is strong. Market crashes hurt far less than before. Hedging, diversification, calculated risk. When the market dropped 18% in 2021, my portfolios dropped only 6%. Recovery captured 94% of the upside. Risk management is half my job. The other half? Finding opportunities others miss. That's where the real returns come from. They exchanged glances. Let's do it, Dad said. Professional only, he added. No revenge for 30 years of dismissals. I smirked. Professionalism guaranteed. Every decision based on data, strategy, and performance. Nothing else. The following week, we signed the agreement. $110 million transferred to LMC Capital Management. I had sole decision-making authority over the entire family fortune. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The daughter, once denied access to a small trust at 16, now controlled every dollar. I immediately restructured the portfolio, liquidated risky individual stock positions, diversified, 40% growth equities, 25% value equities, 15% international, 10% alternative assets, 10% fixed income. Not flashy, not glamorous, but optimized for steady returns and protection. The first quarter returned 7.3% versus the market's 6.1%. Second quarter, 11.2% versus 8.8%. Third quarter, minus 2.1% versus minus 4.7%. Fourth quarter, 9.8% versus 7.2%. First year total, 28.4%. Their $110 million grew to $141 million. Year 2, 31.7% return. $141 million became $186 million. Not only had they recovered, they had surpassed their previous peak. And it was undeniably because of me. Family dinners changed. Investment discussions still dominated, but now they asked my opinion out of respect, not obligation. Lily, what's your take on emerging markets? Dad would ask. I answered, and sometimes they followed up, sometimes they just listened. Finally, I was no longer the overlooked daughter. I was the one they depended on, the one they respected. Marcus struggled more than anyone with the shift in family dynamics. His pride couldn't accept that his little sister was now in charge of the family fortune. He'd occasionally toss out snide remarks about luck or the market being favorable. One afternoon, after a particularly cutting comment, I had reached my limit. Marcus, I said calmly, your portfolio, under your management, averaged 9.2% annually over 8 years. Mine, 22% annually. That's not luck, it's skill. If you can't recognize that, maybe it's time to speak with someone about your insecurity. Dad chuckled. Mom looked shocked. Vanessa barely hid her grin. Marcus turned crimson but didn't reply. 2 years after taking over their investments, Dad approached me with a bigger proposition. We want you to manage the entire family office, he said. Not just investments, estate planning, trust structures, tax strategy, everything. You'll be compensated appropriately. I paused. This was serious. Managing a family office of this size typically came with $2 to $5 million annually. We'll offer $3.5 million, plus your regular performance fees, Dad continued. I considered the offer. Generous, yes, but I had one condition. And that is, Dad asked, you must publicly acknowledge, in every meaningful way at family gatherings, that I am not the family's artistic failure. I am the family's most financially successful member, and you were wrong about me for decades. There was a stunned silence. You want us to admit we were wrong? Vanessa asked. I want reality recognized. An apology isn't required, though it'd be nice. I want acknowledgement that your assumptions were biased and unfounded. Dad nodded quietly. We were wrong. Embarrassingly wrong. You're not just successful, you're extraordinary. We overlooked it because of our own prejudices. Thank you. Will you take the role? Dad asked. Yes. Send me the contract. At 34, I became managing director of the Caldwell family office. My older siblings now reported to me on financial matters. The daughter who once had only a savings account was now running the entire fortune. I didn't gloat. I focused on doing my job flawlessly. By the 4th year, I had grown the family wealth to $270 million, surpassing any point in their history, even before the 2021 market downturn. Dad, now 71, started discussing legacy and succession. One Sunday, he called me into his study. I want to restructure the family trust, he said. You should have ultimate control, not just management, but ownership. You've earned it. Marcus and Vanessa will maintain their distributions, but you're the one with the vision, discipline, and skill to grow this for generations. I was wrong to doubt you. I reflected on my 16-year-old self, asking about a trust fund and being told I wasn't mature enough. I remembered every dismissive remark, every lecture about leaving investing to the experts. I'll think about it, I said. Later at dinner, Marcus began discussing a stock tip. Huge potential, he said. I'm putting in $500,000 personally. What's the revenue model? I asked. It's still developing, but the tech is revolutionary, he replied. Sounds risky, I said. You can't make money without risk, he countered, with a hint of old condescension. No, I said firmly. Investing is calculated risk backed by analysis, not gambling. My approach generated 31.7% returns last year. How did your picks perform? The table went silent. Dad intervened. Marcus, run major investment ideas by Lily before executing. She can help prevent costly mistakes. Marcus flushed but nodded. The shift in authority was unmistakable. The daughter once told to leave investing to the experts was now the expert. A month after the succession discussion, I received a text from my JP Morgan portfolio manager. The $270 million position was ready to be liquidated. I was at Sunday dinner. Dad spoke of establishing a charitable foundation. Mom suggested vacation properties. Vanessa planned her daughter's extravagant wedding, all funded by the wealth I had built. I replied, maintain position. Finally, the lesson sank in. It wasn't about revenge, it was about acknowledgement, about confronting decades of bias and underestimation. They had dismissed me my whole life. Now every dollar they spent, every comfortable choice they made, depended on me. I could have liquidated the portfolio and watched them scramble, but I didn't. I remained professional, disciplined, and composed. My success was its own vindication. Dad raised his glass. To Lily, who made all this possible. We are grateful for your brilliance. I smiled, thinking of the girl who once had a $10,000 savings account and was told she didn't understand investing. She had understood. Enough to build an empire quietly, to control the family's wealth, and to show that assumptions could never outweigh talent and determination. I had turned dismissal into motivation, and success into undeniable truth. Every decision, every strategy, every dollar, it all reflected the daughter they once underestimated. Justice wasn't in destruction. It was in mastery, and I had mastered it.